What it is, what it do, cyber world. It is your girl, the one and only Ash Said It. AshSaidIt.com, AshSaidIt.com. This is the Ash Said It Daily Podcast Show. I appreciate you guys for all of your love and support. Over 1,300 episodes and 500,000 streams worldwide. Thank you guys so very much for all of your support, all of your love, all the shares, all the cares. It makes a huge difference. It makes a really huge difference. And I get to chat with amazing, fantabulous people such as the wonderful, beautiful owner and head distiller of Owney's rum, the wonderful Bridget Firtle. Hey, Bridget.
Hey, Ash. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. So, on the heels of Women's Equality Day, I could not let this month go without trying to snatch you up and chat with you for a little bit because your story is absolutely amazing. It's inspirational. And I just had to chat with you. We had to make this happen.
Yeah. No, I'm glad we connected. I'm happy, always happy to talk business and rum and women bosses. So
absolutely
makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah. So, all right. So, Bridget, first off, where did the idea for this distillery come from?
Yeah, so my background academically and for the beginning, part of my career professionally was in finance, went to business school, studied finance, naturally. After my MBA, I went and got a job as an investor and research analyst for the hedge fund. And I had been basically covering consumer staples goods in that sector and wound up developing a niche in global alcoholic beverage investing. So we took positions in a lot of big publicly traded beer, wine, and spirits companies around the world. And, kind of doing my job for the hedge fund, I was beginning to get exposed to trends and what was happening on the smaller scale in all of these, liquor and beer and wine categories. And I was really, really excited about what was starting to happen in the rebirth of American craft distilling and basically distilleries starting to, be founded and built across the country due to changing laws that were just starting to kind of ease since Prohibition, and a new consumer looking for, awesome quality products made from better ingredients with stories in a local feel. So watching it from afar and kind of wound up falling in love with it, and wanting to get involved more, intimately than I was just from the hedge fund perspective. So wound up having this vision to bring rum, which is my favorite spirit, back to New York. Because a lot of these distilleries around the country were, embracing the history of making spirits in the U.S., and not many of them were making rum, and rum was America's first spirit, first distilled on present-day Staten Island in New York City, and native New Yorker, and kind of was really inspired to make unique, interesting rums back here in New York. I jumped ship from the fund about 7 years ago. I'm losing track of time. End of 2011, and started building a distillery in Brooklyn in 2012.
Wow. So, and as you were on this new quest and this new love of yours, this new adventure, what was one of the biggest challenges that you faced?
You ask any entrepreneur, I think in any industry, they have a plethora of challenges, to say the least. So some of the biggest ones for us have been just navigating. It's a very capital-intense business, meaning it requires a lot of money, not only from an overhead perspective, manufacturing, but also from sales and marketing perspective. It's as we all know, like a very competitive, big business here in the United States, and finding unique ways to get out there and sell and market your products without the marketing budgets of a giant company is always an interesting chess game. And I would say those are fundamentally some of the bigger challenges. And then secondarily, it's really navigating the regulatory environments. Each state here really is like its own country in terms of its laws. for regulating the sales and distribution of spirits. So those are constant uphill battles that, we just kind of continue to learn from and adapt to and change and try to just challenge convention and from a marketing perspective and, keep swinging the bat.
Yeah. Okay. So what is the process of distilling rum?
So one of the most exciting definitions or lack thereof around calling something rum is that it needs to come, the only universal definition, so to speak, is that it needs to come from some form of the sugarcane plant. And rum is made in 90 different parts of the world in 90 different ways. And I would say the majority of rum starts with molasses, which is a byproduct of the sugar refining process. That's what we make our rum from. We make our rum from an all-natural, non-GMO, grade A sugarcane molasses that comes from independent sugarcane farmers in Florida and Louisiana. And then we basically mix that with water and add a proprietary yeast strain where those three unique ingredients ferment for 6 to 8 days. We force a process called esterification, which is the formation of esters or flavor compounds in the fermentation. And then we distill that. So we wind up with a solution that's around 8% alcohol by volume. And then you put it into a still and you extract the alcohol to a much higher concentration during the distillation process. About 82% alcohol by volume off of the still. And then we blend that back with water to get to 40% or 80 proof, which is what our bottle strength is.
Wow. So as to date, what has been, as you would feel, your biggest success? Your biggest success or your moment of confirmation, like this is absolutely what you're supposed to be doing?
It's interesting. I don't think that there's necessarily one moment. It's like once I started doing this, kind of just felt hard to put into words. It felt like this is what I always should have been doing, which is kind of interesting. I'm not necessarily a very spiritual person, but it did feel very much like fate, and I'm exactly where I should be and I'm supposed to be. But that being said, it was a huge risk. It continues to be, right? It's like making a product that I like, hoping somebody else likes it, and kind of hustling and knocking on doors. And now we have a bigger team, which is really exciting, and national distribution, but it's constantly, getting the product in front of people, getting them to taste it. We've been validated just by some of the best tastemakers and chefs and mixologists throughout the country really approving, really liking and enjoying the product and using it. And that kind of has just continued to grow over time, as well as the rums have won multiple awards from very well-regarded competitions. So that also for sure helps in validating that I'm on the right path here.
Yeah. And where did the name come from?
Yeah, so start the business, or I'm thinking about the business. I'm bringing rum distilling back to New York. I'm going to make really unique, interesting, flavorful, and complex white rums without adding any sugars or natural flavorings or artificial colors or artificial flavorings. And I've got all of those concepts. And I'm like, what am I going to call this? So I start thinking about, back to my childhood and my experience in New York and the history of rum in New York. And I think about my childhood home, which houses a speakeasy that was active during Prohibition in the basement. Start reading about Prohibition, and where I'm from is this town called Rockaway Beach, Queens. It's right on the Atlantic Ocean. I come to learn that there was a ton of rum running done through Rockaway Beach, through the Atlantic Ocean during Prohibition. And essentially what rum running was is that ships would come up full of rum from the Caribbean, drop anchor at what was known as Rum Row, which was about 12 miles offshore in international waters. And gangsters or fishermen hired by gangsters would take their boats out to Rum Row, fill them up with rum, and smuggle them back into the Eastern Seaboard, and a lot of that was coming through New York. Like, that's cool. It's another rum-soaked time in U.S. history, as well as the colonial time. And I come across this man named Owen Madden. His nickname was Owney, and he was a lot of things. He was a big-time boxing promoter, speakeasy owner, bootlegger, and then most endearing to me, he was a rum runner, and he was responsible for a ton of rum drinking and distribution in New York City during the Prohibition time. And he had an estate in my hometown that was kind of like his main hub for smuggling rum in. So thinking, badass New Yorkers that hustle rum. Okay, cool. That makes sense. We'll go with it. I also have to like the nickname Owney. So
that is cute.
That was that.
Yeah. Now, how many different varieties of rum do you guys currently make?
We have 3 varieties, and they all start with the same process, which I was describing earlier.
Right.
Our original, which was the process I described earlier, molasses, premium quality molasses from Florida and Louisiana. We fermented that for 6 to 8 days at cold temperatures and distill it in a pot column hybrid still. That becomes the feedstock for original, which is bottled at 80 proof or 40% alcohol. That also becomes the feedstock for our second release, which is an overproof. So same exact process, but we just blend it down with less water at the end. So we bottle that at 130 proof or 65% alcohol by volume. And it's really cool that these two rums, same exact ingredients, same exact production, just less water added at the end, can be so distinct in flavor and aroma. And our most recent release, which is becoming our flagship, it's nationally distributed, is actually a blend of our original and a rum from the Dominican Republic that's made from fresh pressed sugarcane juice, and it's aged for 2 years in ex-bourbon barrels. So we ship that up to the distillery in New York at cask strength, and we blend it with our still-proof original, and then when we blend that combination down to 80 proof or 40% alcohol by volume, and it's really interesting. It pays a bit of homage to the Caribbean, which is responsible for so much awesome rum and so much history.
Yeah.
It also incorporates an aged product into our portfolio, so a lot of like traditional baking spice, caramel, vanilla notes that you get from a barrel, balanced with the funk and like gritty edge of our original. And a lot of also the inspiration comes back to Owney for that. So one of the big time practices of the rum runners was to smuggle in, typically from Cuba, from Havana, aged reserves, and then they would blend them with locally distilled spirit to extend those precious aged reserves. So I had that a little bit in mind when I was creating this most recent product as well.
Wow. So last but certainly not least, Bridget, for my listeners that are global, I have a global audience and people are listening everywhere right now. For those people that want to experience Owney's rum, what's the best way for them to get that experience?
Yeah, so I would suggest kind of connecting with us on the internet. So if you'd like to purchase a bottle, which is always a great way to experience the rum, if you go to Owneys.com, OWNEYS.com. There's a store locator there, so you can, enter your address and find out where locally you can either purchase a bottle or purchase a drink. And then I'd also highly recommend following us on social media. So our handle is at Owneys Rum, OWNEYSRUM. And, that's kind of the best way to stay in touch at the moment, and hopefully, the dream gets realized, and we're a household name over time.
Absolutely, Bridget. Thank you so much for joining us today. Like I said, just knowing that this was your brainchild, and now it's slowly but surely absolutely taking over, and you're getting more and more supporters on a global scale. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible, and we absolutely appreciate you and your team, because I know that it takes more than just one person to help these things come together. So kudos to you.
Totally. And thank you so much for having me. as you were saying, opening up the podcast, like, I appreciate everyone out there listening and trying to get the word out and just getting more people to talk about rum, drink more rum, and hopefully Owneys as well as you're doing so.
Yes, absolutely. And I appreciate you guys for all of your support. Keep in mind, anyone to tell you that you can't do what you want to do, you look them square in the face, you tell them, don't believe me, just watch. Watch what I do. Watch me make it happen. Watch me make history. That's what we're doing this for, the history books. Social media is nice, but real life is way better. Until next time, you guys.